I'm Ricky with Everyday Woodworking, your podcast home for tips, tricks, and information on how to make the most of your woodworking time and money every day. Well, look at us here at freaking episode 20, baby. Can you believe that? Wow. How did that happen? 20 episodes. That's pretty cool. Very cool. I am very excited. Looking back over things and seeing how the podcast is already evolved in just a few months. I love where we are right now, though. But who knows? I mean, who knows how things are going to go? Who knows how things are going to continue changing as we go along? But I'm having a good time doing this. I really am. I hope you guys are enjoying it. It seems like people are. Our listenership is on the rise. We're getting tons of great comments, so I'm excited. I don't know, maybe we're doing something right. Maybe we are. But hey, thank you to everyone who listens and subscribes to us every week. Obviously, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. So a huge thanks up to you for making what we do possible. Well, I'm recording this on Father's Day, and as a dad, of course, Father's Day has a special place for me. My dad and both my grandfathers have passed on already, so we don't get to celebrate with them any longer, but the kids kind of go all out, make me feel appreciated every year, and it's a reminder that I really am crazy blessed. But I wanted to do something a little different for this episode, so let me take you through my thought process. This is, obviously, if you're here, you know this is a woodworking related podcast. So in my mind, woodworking is a pretty quote unquote manly subject. So even though we might not always talk about woodworking specifically, I like to look at subjects that might typically appeal to most men. And I figure if these things are interesting to me as a man, then they'll be interesting to you guys too. So I want to look at TV fathers this week. We've all got our favorites, and I know I've got mine. So I want to share my top 10 list of my favorite TV dads with you. And to me, it's not specifically a woodworking topic, but it does apply to men. I think it does, because it brings up those memories and that nostalgia, especially for men in my generation, who will probably relate to the list of TV dads that I'm going to share with you. These are characters that I grew up with, some through new shows at the time during the 80s and 90s, and some through reruns, and you'll see when we get into the list. But nevertheless, these are men whose characters had an influence on me and who I am today. That's not to say that I was only influenced by TV dads, but obviously it's been a big part of my life, and probably yours too. So as we celebrate Father's Day, let's take a brief look at my 10 favorite TV fathers. So before I lay my picks on you for my favorite TV fathers, let me just remind you, obviously, you probably know by now, these are my picks. They're not in any particular order, other than to say that I have saved my number one for the last one. Okay, so the 10th one that I give you, that'll be my number one. But these are mine, so if you don't like them, hey, as I say, you're entitled to be wrong, right? So I'm going to drop my top 10 on you. I'm going to add probably a few honorable mentions at the end too, and there'll be many that could have been on the list. I'm sure there'll be some whining and moaning about who made it, who didn't make it, stuff like that. And if that's you, then just tell me who I should have left off the list or who I should have added in. And if I'm so inclined, if I'm feeling generous, then I may just amend the list. So anyway, yeah, let me know kind of what you think. And let's just see what you think about my list. So here we go. My top 10 favorite TV fathers. All right. First on the list, Howard Cunningham. Howard Cunningham. I don't know if you remember the show Happy Days. Probably you do remember the Fonz. But Happy Days had Tom Bosley as Howard Cunningham. He's one of the first TV fathers that I remember watching growing up. Now, by that time, they were reruns. But Howard Cunningham was, I don't know if he would say if he was what I would say is a realistically real life dad, but in some ways he was very inspiring to me. They kind of portrayed him most of the time as almost like this secondary person in the family behind his wife. And well, as I say that, I can say as a father and as a husband, I can say that is true. It's true a lot of the time. My wife kind of runs the show, but it wasn't the greatest manly example. But from a moral perspective, and to see Howard Cunningham step up and step in when he needed to be a man and impart wisdom, it was a great example for me. So Howard Cunningham from Happy Days, Tom Bosley, bam, that's the first one. The next one, and this may be a little controversial, but I remember watching All in the Family, and Carol O'Connor was Archie Bunker. Everybody knows who Archie Bunker is. Archie Bunker has gotten, I think, kind of a bad rap as being this bigoted, outspoken guy, and he was, but it was real life. And of course, not to say that all that is right today, yada, yada, yada. It was a different time. And people in general were looking at things in a different way, or at least that person that Archie Bunker represented. To me, though, he was this guy who was terribly flawed, terribly imperfect, but when it came down to the meat of Archie Bunker, he was really a loving, sensitive guy who was very concerned about his family and was very concerned about his friends. Of course, we enjoyed the show, but as an example for a father, I would say Archie Bunker was another great example, and he's someone that I count as an example in my life. The next show, number 3, would be Family Ties. Stephen Keaton in Family Ties, who was played by Michael Gross. I will confess, I watched the show for Michael J. Fox because, you know, he was a hero to me. But watching Stephen Keaton be the head of that household and the way he parented and the way he fathered, it was really inspiring to me, and it was really encouraging to me because he wasn't this heavy-handed father. He was one of the first examples that I remember of a father who could be passive. I shouldn't say passive isn't the best description there, but he could be a father who wasn't afraid to open a conversation with his kids. And I thought that was really cool about that character, and it's something that I brought into my own parenting style, and I still try to do that today. So Stephen Keaton, Family Ties, was my number 3. Number 4, and this may seem a little odd coming off of the heels of Stephen Keaton, but my number 4 is James Evans. I don't know if you remember Good Times. You probably remember JJ Dynamite. James Evans was the dad, and he was hardcore and intimidating and he wasn't afraid to talk about unleashing the belt on the kids. And that's how we grew up, not that hard, but we knew that we were going to get the belt because my parents believed in whipping. And so we got it a lot. Seeing James, though, in his role, or seeing John Amos in that role of James Evans, it was real life to me. It was a little extreme, but it was inspiring to me because I thought, here's some people they're hard at it and they're making it happen. Here's a dad who is pushing hard and he's pushing through it and he's making it happen. It was really an inspiring role to me. Of course, the show was funny, but as a dad, I would say James Evans was a role model for me as a dad, and it showed me that it's okay to be hard sometimes when the situation calls for it. My number 5, and this should come as no surprise to anyone that knows me, is Tim the Toolman Taylor. Tim the Toolman Taylor. Tim Allen brought the iconic character of Tim Taylor to life in Tool Time. And it was, of course, an iconic show with an iconic cast. And Tim made it just made it so believable. And even though, of course, he was hilariously funny and things were extreme and exaggerated, his character as a dad was inspiring to me because it mirrored our lives a lot in a lot of ways. Tim was very inspiring to me as I look back on learning to navigate being a young parent. It was not always easy, and I was not always perfect at it, but we always stumbled through it in love together. And I think that was what I drew out of Tool Time, at least from a parenting point of view. As a dad, Tim was always loving in his bumbling, exaggerated kind of way. And he was a great character, and I think it was a great role model for a lot of young dads. So that's my number 5, Tim Allen's Tim Taylor. Number 6, and this probably comes again as no surprise, Charles Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. Michael Landon, I don't know. I mean, I know he had a lot of iconic characters in his career, but this is probably the one. And as a parent, as a dad, I quote Michael Landon a lot. And I try to emulate a lot of what I saw, what I learned from him and his character on Little House on the Prairie. I would like to think that any man could draw examples from that character. Morally upstanding, hardworking, honest to a fault, just good people, a good man, a good father, a good husband, and I think a great example for all of us. My number 7, then it seems like, again, on the flip side of that, is Frank Barone. Now, I don't know if you like Everybody Loves Raymond or if you are familiar with Everybody Loves Raymond, but Peter Boyle made that show for me. I know it was about Ray Ramon, but Frank was my favorite on there. He is probably my favorite, most entertaining TV dad. Now, did I draw a lot of wisdom from Frank Barone? Yeah, no, probably not. But he entertained me, and a lot of his lines in that character, it seemed so real. It just was. It was. I would find myself saying, "Oh my gosh, I remember my dad saying that exact same thing. I remember him doing that thing to us. And anyway, Frank Barone was probably my favorite TV dad, and it was hard not to make him my number one on this list. The only reason he's not my number one is because I didn't really draw a lot from him, but he was definitely the most entertaining to me. Number 8, and this is my number 8 and my number 9. I would say these are people that not so much entertaining, but drawing from them philosophically and morally, just as an example of what I thought a man should be, what I thought a dad should be. My number 8 and number 9, these are two neck and neck TV dads. Number 8 would be John Walton. So I thought Ralph Waite on the Waltons, as John Walton was an incredible dad. And so I pair him a lot with Michael Landon as Charles Ingalls, but John Walton was a different kind of dad. It seemed like Charles Ingalls was more of a stereotypical fictional character. It's exactly what we expected, because we knew he wasn't exactly real, but we knew that it was the exaggeration of what we all wanted to be. To me, John Walton was in that same vein, but he was so believable, because you saw him at his low. You saw him with his challenges. You saw him not able to do some things. So his character was appealingly imperfect. And seeing him succeed and fail and go through highs and lows and indecisions and uncertainties, it was incredibly inspiring to me. And to see him do that, and his character raising and leading a family around him, and running a business as a woodworker and a craftsman. It's everything about John Walton was inspiring to me, and is still inspiring to me. And I would say Charles Ingalls and John Walton run neck and neck. And the only thing that separates the two is Charles Ingalls was just a little more romanticized, I guess I'd say. John Walton was the real deal, hard working, salt of the earth guy. He was believable, and he was somebody that I wanted to emulate. So John Walton, absolutely. And in that same vein, my number 9 is Andy Taylor on the Andy Griffith Show. Andy Griffith brought us Andy Taylor, and of course he was funny, and with his whole Southern drawl and all that, it was funny. It was very stereotypical of the South, but Andy was inspiring, and not just as a dad, but he was inspiring as a dad. The way he tried to impart wisdom to Opie, the way he tried to share stories with him, the way he tried to lead him, sometimes the way he would let him make his own decisions and let him fail. And I found and I still find myself drawing on the Andy Griffith Book of Wisdom in my own parenting. So John Walton, Andy Taylor, that was a close neck and neck for my 8 and 9 right there. Number 10, which is my number 1, and this, I almost did not include this because I didn't want it to be controversial, but it's probably going to be, and if it is, that's okay. But if you're in my generation, I'm in my 50s, so if you're in my generation and you grew up in the 80s, when Bill Cosby himself hit, then you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that Bill Cosby as Cliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show, there was no more iconic dad during that time. It was the perfect mix of comedy and real life, because we watched, when we originally watched the comedy routine, Bill Cosby himself, we sat through like whatever, that was like 2 hours long. We sat through 2 hours of that the entire time laughing at our family, because we were saying the whole time, my God, that's us. That's exactly what we do. That's what my dad does. That's what my mom does. It was so unbelievably real. And it was funny. And it made us think, my God, we are hilarious. We're such idiots sometimes. And then when that carried over very much so into the Cosby Show, I mean, there was no greater dad on TV at the time. Bill Cosby had it wrapped up. I know in recent years, I know Bill has fallen from grace, and I get it. But I cannot help but having Bill Cosby as my number one favorite TV dad as Cliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show. He was America's dad at the time. He really was. And if that's controversial with you, hey, I get it. I understand it. And if you want to talk about that, I get it. You know, we'll chit chat about it. You can ask me questions. You can give me your opinions. But that's me. You can ask my brother. You can ask my friends. So many of us are in the same boat with Bill Cosby, saying, wow, he hit the nail on the head. He had the pulse of American dads at that time. That was it. That was our life. And wow, we could really, really relate to that. That was harder than I thought it would be. Narrowing down my list to 10. There were a lot more that could have been on the list. And I've got a list of some honorable mentions I still want to just pop out here real quick. I think we should go through at least a few more in that list because these, they barely didn't make my list, but they might be on your list. So let me kind of continue on here for a few more quickly through these. Honorable mention TV dads: Danny Tanner, Bob Saget as Danny Tanner on Full House, Carl Winslow on Family Matters. Just the simple fact that he had to deal with Steve Urkel, that had to be something, right? But I think the character of Carl Winslow, that was a great character. Ricky Ricardo, and I know that seems odd, but I've grown up my whole life being named Ricky. Seems to relate to Ricky Ricardo somehow. But I Love Lucy was a fantastic show, and Ricky Ricardo was actually a really great example as a husband and a father on that show. Ben Cartwright on Bonanza. I mean, who wouldn't be inspired by that character? Ward Cleaver, probably, in my opinion, maybe one of the most iconic TV dads in the history of modern television. I would definitely say Hugh Beaumont gave us the standard, at least at that time, for what a dad was supposed to be on Leave It to Beaver. It's a little unrealistic we see now, but at that time, wow, he really brought it home to us as a TV dad. Phil Drummond, who was the character that Conrad Bain brought us on Different Strokes. I don't know if you remember Different Strokes. What you talk about, Willis? No, I thought he did a great job giving us an example of an unconventional dad on there. Of course, Mike Brady might also be considered one of the most iconic TV dads, and he was a little unusual with the way that he with his career and the way he handled the family. So that was a little different too. Probably very relevant to the time that it came out. That was a little before my time though. Phillip Banks, I thought, was another great TV dad on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I thought that he did a great job as a TV dad, even though he was really more considered a dad / uncle on the show. A good example of a dad imparting wisdom to some young men. And then finally, my last one, Jason Seaver on Growing Pains. Another very, I don't know if I would say that Jason Seaver was an iconic dad character, but definitely in that whole vein of things with, like, in the Family Ties era, you know, right around in there with Stephen Keaton. I would say that Jason Seaver was another very influential dad at the time. So anyway, that's wow, that went really fast. But I hope that was nostalgic for you. I hope it brought in some cool memories. I enjoy doing that. And again, I know that, as I said, that wasn't specifically a woodworking discussion. But I wanted to bring some of this stuff up because as a dad and as a man, hopefully, you know, we can relate. You know, I've got most of our listeners are men that are in my generation. So hopefully we can all kind of relate to that as we go through the list. Father's Day also, it's a bittersweet day for a lot of us. If you're like me, you're a dad, but the father figures in your life are no longer there. So it's a day that comes with a celebration of close family, with your kids or grandkids or whatever, but the memory of the men who helped make you who you are is also a big part of it. So as we wrap up this look at famous TV dads, then let me just say that no matter how influential these fictional men may have been, they pale always in comparison to my own dad and my own grandfathers, and probably yours too. So let me just shout out Happy Father's Day to the men who shaped me and who taught me and who played an individual, invaluable role in bringing me to where you find me today. God has blessed me beyond compare with great father figures in my life, and I can only hope that one day I'll be respected to the generations that come after me as much as these men have been in my life. Last couple of things, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a second, leave us a great review. It makes such a difference for us, especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. But wherever you're listening, we would love it if you subscribed and became a regular listener. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, then obviously, you know, we try to post a video of each podcast episode on our Apple Valley Farm, that's our woodworking business, YouTube channel. So definitely, if you're there, like, comment, and subscribe to us there as well. And if you'd like to learn even more about us, you can check out the show notes and head over to applevalleyfarmga.com for more things like our store, our woodworking projects, and lots more things like that. Finally, your support makes it possible for Everyday Woodworking to continue to be on the air and do what we're doing here today. So we'd love it if you blessed us with your financial support through our friends at Patreon. Monthly support with Patreon starts at just $5 a month. Thank you in advance for your help. Please visit us at patreon.com/everydaywoodworking for more details about how you can be a part of that and all the benefits that come along with it. And if you prefer to make just a one-time donation to us, I'll leave a link to our PayPal page in the show notes, and you can go there and contribute in that way. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you so much, as always, for being here. I hope you have a great day. We are about to wrap up our Father's Day celebrations here. My family took me out to Harbor Freight, which, wow, I couldn't believe it. We're walking around in Harbor Freight. There were more women and children in Harbor Freight today than I've ever seen in my life. It's like everybody took their dad to Harbor Freight and said, hey, pick out what you want, you know. And it was kind of funny. I told my wife, I said, we're in there, and I looked over at them, and they're just like they're like dragging along, and I'm 6 feet in front of them, you know, just thrilled to be in Harbor Freight, and they're just dragging along like the Walking Dead coming up the aisle behind me, and every other family was like that. It was the same thing with everybody. So anyway, it was good to be there. We went out, we had a ball, we went and ate stuff that we shouldn't eat. We spent money we shouldn't have spent, and we just had a good time together. So it was a great day. So I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful for you being here, and I hope you will come back and see us every week right here on Everyday Woodworking.